Hi everyone, and welcome back to Smoke Signals. I'm Matt Montgomery along with head football coach Wayne Coleman. Fighting Indians get off to a great start in week one. A home win over the Pine Tree Pirates by a score of 21-12. And Coach, we talked about last week how first games are really strange. This one wasn't so strange. A really clean ball game for your Fighting Indians. Only one turnover, and it really wasn't a turnover after looking at the film. But your overall thoughts on a great first win?
Kind of typical first game in regards to special teams issues that every team tries to work out at the beginning of the year. But like you said, offensively and defensively, we played a really clean game.
Started off really fast. I mean, you took the football and had a fantastic drive down the field, 75-yard drive, and you score right off the bat. And I guess the thing that really was great about that first drive is how clean it was. We've used that word already. But your quarterback, Dontrell Session, was very precision-like in his passing and reading and executing the zone read.
Yeah, he had some opportunities there on the first drive of the game to run the zone read the defensive end, make some runs off of it, and also to make some good throws on the play-action passes.
So really, you didn't do anything fancy. You just basically ran the plays that you kind of ran in the scrimmage earlier against Bullard. It wasn't anything fancy. Your offensive line just got off the ball and did a good job and opened up some holes for T.J. Ratliff, and your receivers ran good routes, particularly Jayshon Bush, which we'll see some highlights in a minute. But anyway, the fast start, getting up 7-0, that was really key.
It was. It helps your confidence. It, gets your kids going. We held back some in the Bullard scrimmage on some of our play-action pass game because we wanted to save it for the Pine Tree game. So it was good to see that stuff work well for us.
I know you guys had scouted Pine Tree and you knew how big they were, but until we actually got on the field, Coach, and saw the size differential, it was definitely a difference. But it really didn't have an effect on the game, in my opinion, and maybe that kind of wore down a little bit on their offensive line, some on your defense. But Jacksonville just seemed more physical than Pine Tree.
Yeah, we've got pretty good team speed, and there was no doubt that we were the quicker team on the field. They had so many big kids, and we played to our strength, and we played a lot of kids on our defensive line to make sure that we didn't get tired, and it was a good plan by our defensive coaches.
I thought defensively, trying to stop what they were trying to do with not even a zone read by their quarterback, Williams. It was more he just would take the snap and just run right up the middle, try to get behind his big lineman. And you guys did a good job stepping up and filling the gap.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a big kid, and you always concerned when you put a small, quick defense on the field, you're concerned about size issues, and but our kids held up really well.
Particularly your linebacking core, Shiloh Kennedy and Emilio Meza and Scooter, they did a nice job filling the gap when they needed to and supporting, the big guys up front.
Yeah, they did, and I said we played a lot of kids on the defensive line. We played a lot of kids at linebacker, and we did a lot of rotating at safety positions. So we tried to keep the kids fresh during that first game.
And in the secondary, they tried to test you early, and I think they kind of gave up after the two interceptions. Well, actually the one and then the slap away. They just couldn't get past Bush back there. But they looked like they were going to have some success throwing the ball, but the defense just seemed had good closing speed and a lot of defensive plays in the secondary.
Yeah. There's no doubt when you're going to pound the rock up the middle like they did with their big quarterback, you would think that they're going to try to beat you on some deep balls when you start scooting your safeties up. But our secondary held up well Friday night when they tried it.
Another thing offensively that I noticed is that you didn't really shoot yourself in the foot, as they say, with turnovers. You only had the one I mentioned, but penalties were really clean too. That was another thing that really stood out to me in a first game.
Yeah, really, other than maybe a one procedure penalty, we didn't really make that many mental mistakes. We avoided the holding calls. Those are big penalties that are hard to overcome, but and we avoided negative plays for the most part. So it's easier to move the chains and score when you do that.
You had a rotation system, Coach, at running back with T.J. Ratliff that started the ball game, but starts don't really matter in this kind of offense. The way you guys rotate, D. Spencer got his reps, Scooter Baker got in his reps and caught a touchdown pass at the end of the game that sealed it. How do you feel at this point? I mean, it's just one ball game, but did the system of rotation work well for you and your coaching staff on that situation?
Yeah, it did. You got to be careful about wearing a kid out early in the season if Scooter's playing so many defensive snaps, and D is also, and D and TJ actually rotated at safety also. So we had a good little rotation going in there, and all three of those kids finished the game strong, and it was good to see them hold up.
The poise, we talked about this on the air on the radio the other night, the poise that Dontrell Session showed in his first start was quite impressive to me. I mean, the game seemed slow to him, the way that he took care of the offense running it.
Yeah, and we talk to the kids all the time about practice should be very difficult. It should be hectic. You should feel pressure in practice so that on Friday night the game slows down for you and you can think more clearly. And so we try to keep that pressure up on them during practice.
We'll check out some of the highlights in just a moment, but one other thing that I wanted to comment on was the fact that when your defense needed to step up on that two-point conversion, they looked tired, Coach. I mean, that offensive line was huge, 355, 260, 280. Kind of started to wear down, and you guys were doing a lot of substituting to try to keep players fresh. But then after the timeout, you came back out, and what a great penetration, and we'll see that here in a moment, that stopping the two-point conversion. It basically sealed the game besides the Scooter touchdown.
Sure. It's key. Down there when they've got a little drive going and they're trying to wear on you a little bit to take your timeouts at the right time. And it was big for our defensive coaches to get to talk to the kids right before the two-point conversion and kind of have an idea, a plan of what are we looking for here, who's going to set the edge if they run the ball outside, who's going to force the ball from the middle. And the coaches did a good job of putting the kids in the best position.
Well, there was a lot of highlights in this ball game in Jacksonville's win. Let's take a look at some of those right now. Coach, here's that first drive, and Dontrell Session just calmly back there finds Jay Sean here for 22.
Yeah, good little play action there by Dontrell, and Bush is always tough to tackle in the open field.
And here's the junior T.J. Ratliff with a nice carry here for 27 yards. This is still that first drive.
That little counter play. He's got great feet. He's a very shifty runner. He can usually find a hole for us.
And what a great decision here by Dontrell Session, the way on this 7-yard touchdown. We'll call it a pass, but it was just a little flip right here.
Yeah, they've got that big 6'4" defensive end that was giving us a little trouble, and Dontrell avoided him and made a great play.
And here's another first quarter connection between Dontrell Session and Jay Sean Bush, and nice little laser right here.
Yeah, really nice job by Dontrell putting the ball in between the zones.
Defensively here in the first quarter, here's here's the quarterback, this little flip pass, and you guys just right there.
Yeah, we talked to, Ty Wallace has really played the screen well for us in the scrimmage and in that game.
Here you are back on offense, and senior Cade Chandler gets involved in the play here from Dontrell, excuse me.
Yeah, another play that we knew we had in the Bullard scrimmage, but we saved it for the game.
Yep, and it worked well, 47 yards. There's an 18-yard touchdown run coming up by D. Spencer. Nice blocking here by your offensive line. Here comes Sergio pulling, but D just used that foot speed. There's your regional track qualifier right there.
No doubt. The thing about it is when you're sharing those running back carries, you want to go when you get in there.
Braylon Ryden coming up and making a physical tackle right here on Keyshawn Williams, the quarterback. I mean, just body slams him.
Big play down there in the red zone.
The deuce, as he likes to be called. Here's a big play by Jay Sean Bush. Look at the closing speed. Just comes down and just pulls it down. And then he has the wherewithal to get out of the end zone.
Yeah, he scared me a little bit there.
Well, actually, he should have probably fell in the end zone.
I would take a knee in that case.
Yeah, there you go. So here's their big guy pushing it in, and this guy's 230 pounds. I mean, that was their offense. So here's the two-point conversion, I believe, right here that Jacksonville stops. Look at trips. Good. I don't think even if he hadn't a trip, Coach, you had it covered.
Yeah, look at the excitement of the defense coming off the field.
It's a game clincher right there because it's 14-12. You get the ball back. Here's a great catch by Ja'Shawn Bush right here. Dontrell Session with the pass, and just look at this catch.
That was a big play in the fourth quarter there with 3 minutes left, trying to keep the chains moving and run the clock.
You're up 14-12, and you got a chance right here to seal it, and you do. A little flip pass out to Scooter Baker. Look at the block downfield. Look at Sergio.
And they are excited.
Sergio doesn't get to run down the field like that. Sergio Cabrera with the kick-out block, and 42-yard touchdown throw and catch. Coach, what a great win. 21-12 over Pine Tree. The big crowd at Tomato Bowl, just a great way to start off the season.
It was. I mean, the game started so good for us to get up 14-0 that there was a point there in the second half when it was 14-6, and you're like, I can't believe this. They're closing the gap on us, and we weren't playing. It wasn't that we were playing bad. It was just, you know, they were able to convert a couple field goals, and the game got close. And then, you know, maybe it was a good thing our defense had to make a 2-point stop. Maybe that's something down the road that's gonna play in our favor. And then to finish it off with the screen pass to Scooter for the touchdown. And because I talk to the kids all the time about you can only win the game in the fourth quarter, and that's what we ended up doing.
Jacksonville gets the win to go to 1-0 to start the season, and this week it's Palestine over at Wildcat Stadium as the Wildcats, also 1-0, get a 57-20 win over Maybank. And Coach, you talk about strange games. They had a strange game with Maybank, all kinds of miscues, but they turned a lot of those errors into points at Palestine. So this is a very fast football team they have.
They've got some really quick kids, just extremely difficult to tackle in the open field. They returned 2 punts for touchdowns. The quarterback who was punting turned a miscue on a punt play into a long touchdown run. They're very difficult to tackle in the open field.
Of course, Tyler Gray was their quarterback last year. He's back this year, and he's a young man that is very quick. This is a week where you look at film like that of Palestine and you see those miscues, you see those special teams things. I mean, this kind of gets your attention of that third phase of the game and special teams and how you have to take care of business in that area, right?
Well, there's no doubt. And when we went back and watched last year's game against them, we gave up 23 points in special teams and lose the game by a touchdown. So it's definitely something that's that helps you get your kids' attention, because you know most kids are like most adult football players. Special teams just aren't something they get excited about, but you better get excited about it this week.
So what does Palestine do offensively? Much change from last year? I know they haven't had any turnover in their coaching staff, so I'm assuming they do the same thing. Talk about what they do offensively.
They're going to do pretty much the same as last year. They're going to run the spread and run the quarterback and run some read game, a lot like Cam High did last year. So it's not going to be that difficult for us to simulate in practice for our defense, because we run a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, your linebackers last week, you know, they basically just had to sit, squat, stay in position, and make the tackle. This week a little bit different because they got to shift to your quarterback and they got to do the zone read. They got to stay home and do the job.
No doubt, it's going to be very important on defense. You talk about eye control, and you better have your eyes on your key, especially when you're playing teams that like to run the quarterback. Usually there's a key that will take you to the ball.
Offensively, what do you see having to do offensively against Palestine's defense, and what do they run defensively?
They've been showing that they're going to run a 4-2-5 look, just like Pine Tree did. They have a tendency to play their safeties back a little bit in the first game of the year, but down last year when they came here, they screwed the safeties down tight to try to stop Cam High. So we've got to be prepared for both things.
Yeah, I noticed last week that Pine Tree looked like they kind of loosened up a little bit at first, like they thought, you know, Dontrell Session was going to be throwing the ball, and he still was able to do that. And they kind of tightened up and he took advantage of that. Now, Palestine, it's going to be interesting to see how they take that. So will that shift more of your focus possibly to the running game more?
I think we've got enough offense in where the quarterback can hand the ball off or throw it on most of our plays. So we should be able to make our reads and execute the game plan okay.
What are the keys to the ball game, Coach?
You know, containing the quarterback. He's such a great athlete. And then on special teams, keeping them under control.
This is the first of 6 road games. It's not very far, and it's Palestine. And you know, a lot of these young men have grown up in Jacksonville, knowing about Jacksonville and Palestine, haven't been in the same district with them since 2003 and 2004. So it's been a long time since you've been a district rival, but it's always a game that still generates some emotions because there's people that are related to people over there, and they know everybody. And it's one of those weeks that it's not hard to get up for Palestine.
No, it's not. And it's one of those deals of even though we're classified as a 5A and they're a 4A, the schools, as far as size-wise, are much closer in size than people realize. And the kids, they know each other, and there'll be a little bit of a grudge match going on the field.
You stayed relatively healthy. I mean, a few nicks and bruises and stuff, but nothing major. Came out of the Pine Tree game pretty good. Yeah,
we looked good. A couple kids with cramps, but as far as guys missing time, no, we're good to go.
Coach, I was really impressed with the way some of the young players stepped up the other night. It was their first night at Tomato Bowl, and boy, some of them just didn't miss a beat. They came out and they played hard. A lot of young sophomores did a good job, and without naming names, they just as a core group, I mean, you expect Scooter Baker and your D. Spencers and Sergio Cabreras to have big games, but some of your young players stepped up, and now it's their first road test, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle that away from the Tomato Bowl.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of times you can't see from the stands or even on the video a kid that's got the deer in the headlights thing going on. He's not running the right route, or he's not blocking the right guy or whatever. And when you ask them on the sideline, like, what are you doing? They just give you that look like, I don't know. But that usually happens in your first Friday night game. The kid comes to the sideline and he has no idea why he made that mistake, because he hadn't made that mistake all camp.
Yeah.
And they get out there. I mean, I could tell you some stories about guys that did some crazy stuff Friday night that there's no way anyone would have predicted that we would have lined up wrong like that or done the wrong assignment. But you know, it's kind of exciting to get in that first Friday night game under your belt. You
just look up there and you just see a massive humanity up there, which, you know, there's 3,000 or 4,000 people right there, and you're at practice and you're going through, there's nobody there, and then all of a sudden you look up and it does get a 16 and 17-year-old's attention.
Yeah, it does, and it's kind of, I mean, when you win, it's funny to look back at it.
Yeah.
So fortunately, we had that opportunity this week.
Well, Jacksonville heads out on the road for the first of 6 road games this year against Palestine. The Highway 79 rivalry continues. We'll be on the air on 94.3 FM at 6:50, kickoff at 7:30. And don't forget, you can see or listen to the broadcast online as well at mybullradio.com. For head coach Wayne Coleman, I'm Matt Montgomery. We'll see you next time right here on Smoke Signals.